Hello and welcome to your region this week. I'm Anandi Woolery. It's been a busy week, so let's get started. The region of Waterloo is holding their annual Doors Open event, Saturday the 21st. Jordan Tucker is an athletic swimmer from Guelph, aiming for a shot at the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris, France. The region of Waterloo Public Health Department announced that the novel coronavirus had been discovered in the region. This episode, we will be showing you your Region This Week stories from before the pandemic began. Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region is selling gingerbread houses to raise funds for the organization. Welcome to your Region This Week's COVID-19 local update. Premier Doug Ford had been exposed to a case of COVID-19 and went into isolation at his late mother's home. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this program is being produced and broadcast on First Nation lands in 4 communities that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. Hello and welcome to the 100th episode of Your Region This Week. I'm Anandi Woolery. I'm joined in studio today with Your Region This Week producer, Robert Kubbinga. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Anandi.
We did it, 100 episodes.
That's right.
What a wild ride this has been.
It has, yeah.
So about how we have been taping and airing for what, 2.5 years?
Yeah, it's been 2.5 years with pandemic breaks and interruptions. And yeah, the first episode was May 10th, 2019.
I do remember that day actually specifically. You and I were reminiscing a little bit before we started rolling the cameras, and when you said May the 10th, I said, I remember, because we tape in advance, right? We're going to get a little bit of behind the scenes in this episode here. We're going to pull the curtain back. So we actually do have to tape, we do tape in advance, and you do your magical editing, and the show is aired on the Friday, usually at 7 p.m.
That's right, yeah.
And that day that we taped on May the 9th, I was actually in Dresden, Ontario that day. I'm part of a theater group, and we were performing at the Dresden High School. And once we were done the performance, we had to hightail it back here to Kitchener-Waterloo, probably took a shower, and came to tape that first episode. So I do remember that day in great detail.
It was a first for a lot of things. I mean, it was my first show that I'd been producing myself as a producer. I'm originally from the Durham region area, so not too new to Rogers, but I was brought on board to specifically produce this show. And it's been an interesting ride, to say the least, over these 2.5 years. We've seen many different things. We've seen the LRT launch in Kitchener-Waterloo after 13 or some odd years of planning. We've seen the world's almost deadliest pandemic impact our region. It's just been really an interesting ride.
It has been. It's been historic times. What we thought was going to be a regional show and things that were of interest to our community, the world actually, like something that was a world event, just became part of our everyday lives, you know?
Exactly. I remember it was back the March 20th, 2020 was our last episode in studio before we went on a 1.5-year virtual break, if you will. We could only do from home before we could even return to the studio.
I'm going to give props to Rogers TVs because they look after their staff and they look after their volunteers. And Rogers was really good about safety, and they follow the protocols to a T. So yeah, we did have to switch to sort of the virtual studio.
Exactly.
And working from home, yeah.
And that's exactly, Rogers TV really had in mind to keep the volunteers safe and the employees safe during these unprecedented times, as everyone's heard that phrase before. So March 20th was actually the last episode of Your Region This Week for quite.
The region of Waterloo Public Health Department announced that the novel coronavirus had been discovered in the region. A woman in her 50s had recently traveled to Italy. The woman had mild symptoms on her Air Portugal flight from Milan to Lisbon, then from Lisbon to Toronto. The woman took private transportation directly to Grand River Hospital from Pearson to be assessed. The region is stressing that the risk to residents in the region remains low, but ask residents to prepare should they need to stay home for a few weeks. For more information on the COVID-19 situation, Visit the Region of Waterloo's website. Due to the coronavirus now being declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization, the CHL has postponed all OHL, WHL, and QMJHL games until further notice. Due to this, Rogers TV will not be broadcasting OHL hockey, including the Kitchener Rangers and Guelph Storm, until further notice. Almost all other sports organizations have also postponed or canceled their seasons. Other events are being canceled all across the region, including the Elmira Maple Syrup Festival. Publicly funded schools in Ontario will also be closed for an additional 2 weeks after the end of March break. The Region of Waterloo is recommending these steps to prevent infection. Wash your hands with warm water and soap or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Avoid contact with people who are sick. Stay home if you are sick. Sneeze and cough into your sleeve and avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. If you do experience symptoms within 14 days of coming into contact with someone who has recently returned from abroad, avoid contact with others and follow up with a healthcare provider and Region of Waterloo Public Health at 519-575-4400.
All of our resources, the whole show was suspended, and we were put into COVID-19 local update special that Rogers TV had across all of our networks.
And we were doing that twice a week in the beginning, weren't we?
That's right. Every Wednesday and Friday, we were doing a COVID-19 update with, we'd have the regional public health updates.
Right, it was mirroring what the region was doing with the updates, correct?
That's right. And then we'd speak with different personalities throughout the region about what was going on and basically what we could look forward to coming up. We were only expecting to be out of office for about 3 or so weeks, and a year and a half later, here we are, type of thing. Yeah, it was really interesting.
It was. And just to pull the curtain back a little, so it wasn't just like, oh, March 9th, we showed up and then we started taping. A lot of preparation had to go into actually building this show and creating the show. Now, when did you start with Rogers? Because you said you're new to Rogers as a staff member, but you came from Durham as a volunteer. But how long have you been working for Rogers?
So I've been employed with Rogers. It'll be about 3 years in 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
I started, funny enough, March 19th of 2019. Before then, I was volunteering with Rogers TV for about 7 years across multiple networks, mainly started in Durham region and at the Oshawa station. But I was volunteering across stations in Toronto, in York region, Peel region, and even here in Waterloo region. I volunteered here and did things like the Guelph Storm games and the Kitchener Rangers games, things like that. So,
right.
Yeah, I finally got hired on here, and I was hired to get your region this week started.
Right. And was it going to be your region this week in the very beginning? Like, you had creative control. So what sort of things did you do to make it a show that you felt represented this region?
Well, when I was brought on to the team, your region this week was actually known as our region this week. It was in its infancy. Only its name was really written down on paper. At that point, we really decided to switch it to your region this week because it's for you, the viewers. It's your region. It's not just our region. It's you at home as well. And we wanted to make sure that came across that way with this name. And we wanted to focus on hyper-local stories that some of the mainstream networks might not cover. These are stories right from your own backyard, as well as different organizations throughout the community. So we will cover federal announcements to the region specifically. Waterloo region is home to many headquarters of many federal, national, international businesses. But there's also those small pieces as well. There's your neighbor next door is looking for a food hamper or something like that. We share the information to connect with the food bank of Waterloo region or the food bank down in Brantford, Brant, and things like that. Really focus on hyperlocal stories so that you, the viewer, can really get the information that you need or want or deserve.
Right. And I remember early on when after I met you, and we'll talk about how I met you, after I did meet you and I started volunteering with this show, you did say that you made a distinction between what you call it, the hyperlocal news and breaking news. And you said this wasn't a platform for breaking news. And I thought that's interesting because when we think of news, we do think of like the larger outlets like City TV and whatnot. And it is breaking news. There was a fire here, or like I'm trying to think of another example, like a fire or a car accident. Unfortunately, sometimes in the news industry, if it bleeds, it leads. So, but it was like really breaking news is what we're used to thinking of as news. But this was different. This was not breaking news.
No, this is more of a weekly newscast. We take the time to focus on the Waterloo region, Stratford, Perth, Brantford, Brandon, Guelph, Wellington. This area, this Grand River watershed, if you will, really deserves the focus, the hyperlocal focus that we all deserve. A lot of the times, you catch stories on other networks that can, you'll see maybe one Kitchener story, then you're looking at something in Toronto, then you're looking at something in Winnipeg or Vancouver, whichever, and it's like, yeah, that story is interesting, but it doesn't really apply to me. It doesn't apply to here at home, and that's something we wanted to focus on. Rogers TV is local matters, and that's the whole reason Rogers TV is here today, is to help focus on what you might not know in this community, so that we can share that information and get that across to you, our viewer.
Excellent. I believe in that as well. I've been volunteering with Rogers TV. I don't even want to say the year. I don't know, maybe 2010, who knows. But I've loved my time here, on the camera. I'm surprised we never met at a Guelph Storm or a Rangers game, because I've done camera a couple times there. And yeah, so much I've learned through Rogers, and not just the technical aspect of it, but I've learned so much about my community and my region by being here and getting that local focus. So going back then, so welcome to your our first episode of how I met my producer and how he met his host. So when you were given the show, it was going to be your region this week, and how did you come about starting to sort of staff it? And I know with staffing here, it's done by volunteers, but how did you find your volunteers and your host?
That's right. So Rogers TV is mainly run by volunteers. Actually, we staff it's a 1 to almost 100 volunteers. We have thousands and thousands of volunteers across our networks, and when it came to this program and starting Your Region This Week, we wanted the show to be able to be run by volunteers, if you will. So for Your Region This Week, I'm the only paid employee on it. Everything else is done by volunteers or anything of the sorts. So in order to get this show on the road, we needed to look for a volunteer to host this show, and we did hold auditions. Mm-hmm. Our community engagement specialist at the time sent out an email to our volunteers who were interested in hosting different shows and whatnot, and we got a few replies, and we brought them in, and
I was one of them, and that's how I met Robert. I met Robert at the audition. Hello, and welcome to Your Region This Week. I'm Anandi Woolery. We've got a lot coming up in the next half hour. MP Bardish Chagger announces a new investment plan in Waterloo Region. A Facebook group against Doug Ford held strikes in Kitchener and Stratford this Wednesday. Brantford residents under a water advisory Wednesday into Thursday because of a water main break. Guelph held public consultations to review their Cultural Heritage Action Plan. And the Blue Water Recycling Association is changing what you can recycle in Stratford. First, we'll look at the new investment into Waterloo Region. Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger announced the new FedDev Ontario investment into XL Tool, Nassark Technologies, and Magnet Forensics. And it was sort of a It was a cool experience, nerve-wracking, but I'm just so happy that, after you looked after the tapes, there was something that you saw you thought was a good fit. And it's been a wonderful 100 episodes for me. I hope it's been a wonderful 100 episodes for you. And we'll just go to a break now. And Your Region This Week, 100th episode. We'll be right back after this break. welcome back to the 100th episode of Your Region This Week. I'm here in studio with Your Region This Week producer, Robert Kubbinga.
Yes.
Oh, what a trip down memory lane that was.
Yes, it's as I said, 100 episodes. It's crazy.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. So the next segment that we'll talk about was actually not a region, your Region This Week segment. It was a COVID-19 segment, I recall.
That's right.
And
so
the world had changed. Like the focus of our news stories had changed so much. And with this one here with Dr. Didick.
That's right. When Your Region This Week became suspended, we went and started producing the COVID-19 local update show, and that's what this next segment I want to talk about is from. You started doing your own interviews, and you did an interview with Dr. Nicole Didick, a geriatrician here in the region. Can you tell me what it was like interviewing Dr. Didick and really what she was like focusing on, and how did it feel to start doing interviews?
It was interesting. I had done some interviews with Rogers TV before in like sort of my past volunteer life. I did do some arts correspondence stories for a great show called Grand River Living. Miss it so much, would love to have it back again. But great experience for me, and it was just great to jump back into that pool again of interacting with going from hosting to actually interviewing and creating stories. And I'll just tell a little story behind it of the coincidence of how I found the stories. Sometimes we don't find the stories find us.
That's right.
And there was the KW Oktoberfest, Rogers TV Woman of the Year.
Yes.
And I was invited to I think it was a virtual ceremony that year, and got to see all these amazing women in this region that work in arts, that work in the community, and they work in medicine. And you see all the nominees, and the name Nicole Didick came up, and I'm like, I know that name. And I know her from two places, because she actually has done some segments with us before, providing some sort of, I believe so. Yeah, she's done segments with us before. I think you might have done a shorter interview with her.
That's right.
And coincidentally enough, we used to carpool our daughters to the same high school. So I actually did know her from before, and I reached out to her to reconnect and just asked her how she was doing. And in that interaction, she was able to tell me the special work that she was doing with seniors, and she is actually a geriatrician. So specifically, she works on health and wellness. Not, she wants to take this wellness approach, because sometimes we think it's about seniors and their illnesses and their challenges. And she really had this vision that people don't have to get old. It's not the end when you get old. It's actually it's beginning. Like, I think now they've redefined the age of a senior. Like, it's somewhere in your 60s now, or it might even be 70. That a senior is, the definition of a senior is changing. And it's not based on how we feel or to make people feel good. It's medically that people are looking after themselves better and taking better care of themselves, and can live longer, fuller, richer lives. I really got to know more about the geriatrics work that you do in this region, and in particularly with the Geriatric Medically Complex Clinic. Can you tell us more about what you did at this clinic prior to the pandemic?
Sure. Well, so, like the name says, it's called Geriatric Medically Complex Clinic. So we look after older adults, and we don't, a lot of people think of a geriatric clinic as a place where, you can maybe learn how to stop aging, or, if you're like sort of a healthy older adult, but we really see people who are living with complexity.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I was looking back on the segment, and it was something that Didick really wanted to focus on: person-centered treatments. It's a clinic that really wants to focus on the lifestyle of each individual senior, or older adult, as she likes to say.
Older adult. That's what she said. You're correct. It's older adult.
And it's, not everyone's the same. It's not cookie cutter treatments for everyone.
That's right.
And so individual treatment for each individual person.
And she had fantastic tips as well. And and it created a lot of empathy for me as well, because I did realize that because of the shutdown, the older adults they would go out to interact for Tai Chi or the community center, and with the shutdown, that was just not available. So we were seeing some more cases of depression, less movement, more falls. So I'm so glad for the clinic and the work that she's doing just to improve the quality of life for those seniors. But thank you for giving me the chance to reach out to Nicole and do that segment. And I was really happy with the final product, and I hope it was of help to the rest of the community.
Of course, it was very interesting. I loved it.
It was fascinating.
Great.
All right. Well, we are going to move on to our next segment, and this one was particularly difficult. Over the summer, there was the discovery of the 215 graves in Kamloops, Kamloops, British Columbia.
That's right.
At a former residential school at the grounds.
That's right.
And so this was very sobering for all of Canada. And just in our own backyard, just down the road in Brantford, we have our own history with residential schools.
That's right. In Brantford, we have actually Canada's first and longest operating residential school, the former Mohawk Institute Residential School, just south of Brantford. There, with your Region This Week episode 90, we did a special on speaking with the survivors of that residential school, and we were able to speak with 3 individuals about what happened in that school, what was going on, and how they would like us, as those who occupy the lands of the Indigenous peoples, how they would like us to respond and how they want the government to respond.
Yes, that was an amazing day, because we did take much of the day to go on location to have that talk, and Dave Carroll was a very genial host from Rogers TV, and we spoke to the 3 survivors in the former Mohawk Institute Residential School. What was your feelings about walking through that historical space? And not good history, but I'll call it historical.
Yes, it is definitely a moment in Canadian history, as gruesome as it may be. And entering that facility, it was very somber. The energy in the building, you could feel that there was energy, that things had happened there. That
I could feel pain myself. It's hard to explain, but I did feel it.
You could feel the energy, the vibe was just, it was not a good feeling down there. And I can only imagine what the survivors were feeling, who had been there decades before like the floors, as you see in our broadcast previous, there are resin floors there now. It wasn't at that time. There were dirt floors in their playroom.
Right, because one of the survivors, I think, had described, let's make sure I want to get his name right, and that was Roland Martin, I believe.
That's right.
He talked about, because where we were filming, that was the former cafeteria called the Mush Hole.
Yes.
And it was not a nice place. The food wasn't great, there was mush, and then, yes, just the environment itself was not for children.
That's right.
So after she signed my brother in, and then I came in, and I got the same thing. We come downstairs, and then they told you to go into the playroom and get acquainted with the other kids. And
what was this experience like? How old were you at the time?
I was about 9 years old, and it was quite an experience, because I was never away from home before, and but we had a big family. There was, at that time, there was probably 8 of us, or no, 6 of us. And later on, I had a brother and a sister after I got in here.
The facility would at times house anywhere from 90 to 200 children from all across the province, including even those from outside of province in Quebec. And yes, one of the survivors we spoke with, John Elliott.
John Elliott.
He was the runner. He would run from the facility every chance he could get, and every time he was captured or brought back.
I ran away 25, 30 times, I guess.
25 or 30 times.
That's what it says, anyway.
I read a story that one Christmas Eve, you ran.
Every Christmas Eve I was here, I ran away.
Every Christmas Eve.
Yep, right from 1947 to 52. 52 I ran away and they never come after me yet.
Wow.
He'd be placed in this room underneath the stairs.
And he pointed out the room to us.
That's right. He pointed out the room to us, and it's a 2 foot by 5 foot room. And he said he'd spend 2 days in there, and they'd give him a bucket to go to the washroom in, and that was it. It was a dirt floor that they'd put a piece of plywood down on, and it was just, it was crazy. I can't even begin to explain on how that would feel.
And to children, right?
To children. And to children.
Like a concentration camp, and just like a prisoner's camp. It felt like a prison
Exactly.
in many ways. And,
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the other survivor that Dave was able to speak to, and thank you, survivors, for. I just admire the courage they had in telling their truth, because if we don't know the truth, how can we learn from it and get better? And for them to tell their stories in the place where these abuse and this trauma occurred was just very brave of them, and we I really admire their courage in doing that. And so for Roberta Hill, Roberta's story was she came with her sister.
That's right.
And right off the bat, they separated the girls. I'm going to take that back. I said she came with her sister. She was brought to the school with her sister because she didn't go voluntary. I want to correct that. Yeah.
That's right.
When you're a little kid in here, we didn't have all of this. There was no cafeteria, so it was just this dining room, but it still brings back the memories of being separated even in the dining room from brothers, sisters, boys on one side, girls on the other. So that I remember quite well. You couldn't visit with them, couldn't talk to them, even during mealtime.
They would separate them and not connect the family members to help destroy their past.
That's the word. That's destruction.
It's ridiculous, and it shouldn't have ever happened.
Should never have happened. And that's that's part of the process, the truth, and discovering the truth and getting the stories out there. And then part of the reconciliation is locating those other the unmarked graves that may be on the property. And I know that the story goes a little more into that. So the segment will cover that. So yeah, it was a tough story to do, and I'm glad that Roger is and yourself saw the need to do this. It's just so important to tell the truth and get those stories out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your region this week, so 100th episode. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm here in studio with your Region This Week producer, Robert Kubbinga. And our next story is one that comes pre-pandemic. I feel like a lot of what we spoke of has, pandemic, COVID-19 has dominated. But, there was life before the pandemic. And in February of 2020, specifically February 1st and February 2nd, the Caribbean Association of Waterloo Region held a Black History Month launch at the Ken Sealing Waterloo Region Museum, just down there on Homer Watson.
That's right.
And you produced that segment, I believe. You conducted that interview. What was that like for you?
It was really an interesting segment to do. The whole celebration featured different people throughout the Waterloo Region community, Black-led organizations, as well as it had a Inventors of African Descent exhibition.
That's right. The Multicultural Black Inventors Museum.
That's right. Yeah. And it had a lot of pieces of tech and different things that have been invented by Black inventors that you wouldn't even know of.
And it was the scale of it that was amazing, because they probably had, the 20, 30 tables set out of artifacts.
Yeah. There was hundreds of pieces. Hundreds of pieces. And it was very interesting to look through and see just what normal everyday objects, and then you're like, wow, that really? I had no idea. I'm happy that we were able to show and expand the information about that community and sharing it throughout our region.
Yes, and that's something that the Caribbean Association does believe in. And so I got to put my other hat on because I'm actually on the board of the Caribbean Association. And I just really want to thank you as well for, you know, we are part of the region and we need our stories to be told as well. Another great thing that happened on that day, that was an amazing day because there was entertainment, there was steel pan, and I would say from Trinidad and Tobago, there was steel pan, that's my home country. And yeah, live entertainment. Do you remember that? There used to be this thing called live entertainment before COVID-19.
Yes.
And there was dancing, and we were blessed with 2 speakers on that day.
That's right. NDP MPP of Kitchener Centre, Laura May Lindo. She was there. She was a speaker. She also sang at that event, if I remember correctly. She sang up on stage, and we had the pleasure of having her speak with myself, and we did speak about why it's important to hold an event like this in the community.
I have been arguing that we are not doing enough. We have had a number of reports over the course of the last few years that have demonstrated that there are clear gaps for the Black community when it comes to food security, when it comes to access to jobs and job creation, when it comes to our success in school. There's been a number of school boards, for instance, that have been having to deal with anti-Black racism on their own because the province hasn't necessarily stepped up to do the work that I think it's incumbent upon them as leaders to do that work.
The other person we spoke with was at that time the Minister of it was Youth
and Inclusion.
Youth and Inclusion and Diversity, also Waterloo MP Bardish Chagger. She was there and was able to speak about, we need more Waterloo in this country.
Yes, on all sorts of levels. The culture, the tech, yes, we do need more Waterloo.
It's February 1st, which really does kick off Black History Month in Canada. It was Jean Augustine, the first Black woman to become a member of Parliament, also served in the Canadian Cabinet, that moved a motion that was unanimously supported to acknowledge Black History Month, so that we actually not only appreciate the contributions of Black Canadians, but also recognize the work that we need to do. I always say that Canada needs more Waterloo because we are a caring community, and I do believe that we want to see all members of society succeed. This provides another opportunity for individuals, racialized individuals, to not only see themselves in leadership positions and acknowledge the true history of Canada and the contributions that have been made, but also to be able to contribute and learn as we shape an even better future.
Well, and in that year's slogan, get connected, get informed, get engaged. And I loved that slogan that year because it really brought everyone in, and that's exactly what that event did. Is it really got everyone connected, it informed everyone, and it was really engaging.
Yeah, I agree with the connection. For us, traditionally for the Caribbean community and for any sort of Black-led organization, that sort of Black History Black History Month is a great time to get together and celebrate. And it's sort of that, this is my personal opinion, that we actually need a Black History Month because really Black history should be a part of our education curriculum. Black history should be a part of media representation and whatnot. And but there are gaps in that, and that's why Jean Augustine, former MP Jean Augustine, had put the motion forward that we need to have this Black History Month. We need to start somewhere to put that education out there so that people will know the contributions of Blacks into Canadian history and Canadian society. Like this is Canadian history is Black history and vice versa.
Exactly, and that's it's extremely important to have these BIPOC events and just these speakers throughout the community to share this information because there are many people who just physically don't know or understand on how the community works. There's a lot of misinformation out there that people keep hearing and spreading, and it's really not right in any way, shape, or form. And that's why I agree that we need to have Black History Month to share this information to help get that message out there and to help everyone understand what it's really like to have a community like this. It's amazing.
Yes, it is absolutely amazing. I'd like to talk about another amazing person who has broken barriers, and that's Janella Massa. Isn't she? Oh my gosh, what girl, here are your flowers. I love you, Janella. Yeah, call me. No. She is amazing. She's an icon. She has become an icon. And guess what? She started with Rogers, was one of her first broadcast opportunities. You had all the good gigs, Robert. You got the chance to actually speak with Janella and find out more about like her journey and a lot of the first and a lot of the milestones that she achieved.
You started at Rogers TV in Peel region, made your way up through CTV Kitchener, becoming the first reporter in North America to wear a hijab on air, became the first anchor to host City News Toronto, again with a hijab on air, which is amazing, and now at CBC. Let's talk about through that journey.
Yeah, you know, a lot is made of me getting my start on air at CTV Kitchener, but really even before that, Rogers TV was the one who put me on air first. Of course, it was a volunteer position, but I learned so much through Rogers TV in Peel, working as a host. They also helped me get some videography experience, which was really vital to me landing my first job.
That's right. So many viewers at home will know Janella Massa as right now she's with CBC, a different network than here. But yes, so she started with Rogers TV actually in Mississauga and Brampton, with our Peel region area. And she was actually on a show called Access Peel. She was a reporter for that while she was interning with CTV Toronto. But she really wanted to get on air. So Rogers TV gave her the opportunity to get on air, to build her demo reel and whatnot. And she was able to get her first job, one that broke a milestone. It really broke the stigma. Here at CTV Kitchener, actually, in our local region, she became the first person in North America to be on air wearing a hijab as a reporter, which is just it's amazing and wonderful. And then after being at CTV Kitchener, she made the climb. She came back to Rogers under the City News brand in Toronto and became the first anchor of a major network newscast wearing a hijab on air. And she was with City News for quite a while until, again, she broke another milestone and became the first person in North America to wear a hijab on air, anchoring CBC's The National, as well as her having her own program, Canada Tonight, on CBC.
Oh, wow. This is absolutely amazing. What an inspiration. And she is so good at what she does. She is clear, she gets to the point, and she asks the right questions.
That's right.
I love listening to her interviews.
Yeah, and she's still on CBC as we speak. And that's the thing. She talked a lot about that she really helped open the door to other reporters across the country. We have another reporter, I should say, with another Rogers Network, City News Montreal. We have Faria Nakvi Mohammed, a reporter with City News Montreal, and we're allowing these doors to open so that those who have there shouldn't be just one cookie cutter statement of how a reporter could look like or could be or anything like that. A reporter can be anyone of any way they can practice any religion that they'd like. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't matter what religion you are or anything like that. It's just who you are as a person.
It is, and as well too, like with gender as well. Sometimes in the media for news, sometimes women are not taken seriously for news. Like they're expected to do, the weather girl or things like that, sort of those tropes and those stereotypes. And no, she gets into the issues, and she can get into the issues of national news, all sorts of issues on just a range of topics.
That's right.
And like you said, religion as well. That Islamophobia can be a problem in this country,
exactly.
and overcoming that with her intelligence and her grace. Yes. And hardworking, such a hardworking woman.
Oh yes, extremely hardworking, especially to get where she is today.
Yes, and so you said she was also she was able to inspire other women in media.
That's right.
I think one of them was the creator of Little Mosque on the Prairie.
That's right, Zarka Nawaz out in Saskatchewan. Yes, she also hosts.
Did I say Little House on the Prairie? I should have said Little Mosque.
Little Mosque on the Prairie, that's right. CBC's
I love that show.
Little Mosque on the Prairie, as well as she's a 6 p.m. anchor for CBC News in Saskatchewan. So
okay,
there we go. It's again opening doors for minorities across this country that really shouldn't have. We're opening these doors, but those doors shouldn't even be in existence.
That's right.
They should have as much access to anything that anyone else has access to.
She's a true trailblazer, and that's sort of a definition of a trailblazer, to open those doors so that others can follow behind her.
That's right.
It's absolutely amazing. Your Region This Week's 100th episode. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the 100th episode of Your Region This Week. Oh, Robert, we have come almost very close to the end of our reminiscing, but we're coming to I feel this might be the most exciting story for you personally.
That's right.
And that was the launch of the ION.
That's right, the light rail transit that finally started rolling down the rails in June of 2019.
Rolling down the rails. Did you guys get it? Rolling down the rails. Okay, continue.
Yes, so it was something in the plans. 2003 is when it was first mentioned with regional council, and there you were. 16 years later, the ION first opened 1 hour before the official start to summer, to make it a spring opening that they said it would be.
This is my slow clap, Robert, because they made the deadline. Yeah.
Congratulations, you made it by the hair. But yes, so they started in June 2019, of course. Before the first train even rolled down the rail, the region saw $3.2 billion.
Billion. Okay,
billion. That's billion with a B. Dollars of investment into the Waterloo region along the ION corridor that mentioned that they were specifically coming to Kitchener or Waterloo region because of the ION. If you've seen right there at the intersection of King Street and Victoria, it's severely changed. You can see Google's rising like crazy. They have a building on stilts now. For gosh sakes, it's massive.
It has changed what our cities and our region looks like.
That's right.
Yeah. And for me personally, okay, can I turn left here anymore? Can I do a U-turn? But it's all good. Like I do feel this was something that was needed to improve transit in the region, with a bit of adjustment, because some of the hubs that had existed before just weren't there anymore. Like my son used to live across from I think it's the Strasbourg terminal.
That's right.
And then with the ION coming in, that was no longer there. And I know the Highland terminal sort of, because the routes had changed, the Highland terminal was not needed anymore. But the time has passed and people are adjusting.
Yeah, everything shifted from centered terminals throughout the region to more of it was almost like a nervous system, if you will. You've got the central system that is the ION, the spine, and then the buses start off from the ION and they split off and go outwards, expanding throughout the region. So like the Charles Street terminal, the biggest one that we had in the area.
How could I forget Charles Street? Of course, iconic Charles Street.
It's now a COVID-19 testing center, and there's even talks of returning it to the Indigenous peoples, referencing back to our Speaking with Survivors. But the ION rolling down the rails, it took so long. Bombardier had many delays, months and months, which led to years of delays, of course. We had 14 trains come from Bombardier all of which had to be repaired and repaired on site because of a critical welding error that's affected Toronto the same way. But I mean, the region of Waterloo got 2.2 million out of that, as well as another LRT train, because of how long we had to wait to get this system up and running. The rails were in place for quite a while. The trains weren't rolling down them.
All right, but the day of, it did happen. So
Yes.
you were there taping, and just give me your favorite moment of that day, and it better be the same moment I'm thinking of.
I loved standing there as soon as the music started to play. I was right down there next to the rails with my camera, and the first train that led out of the station, they waited for the arms to come down across Wilson Street there at Fairway Station, and the train just blew out of the station full speed, and just to show what it could really do. And it was just absolutely amazing, with 3 other cars trailing behind it. And yeah, that was the first day that the light rail transit finally started in Waterloo Region. Not to say anything, the stage 2 is still on its way.
Oh, and stage 2 is coming, so stay tuned for that, viewers. That is a story that will be coming up. So yeah, that definitely for me was one of the highlights, because it did change the face of the region.
It really did.
And our last story, I've saved the best for last. And Robert had asked me, which is your favorite story? And I did not hesitate. I said, I know what story it's, and I'm going to say it's the kid with the shopping spree. But there's more to it than that. Like, I just remembered the shopping spree. So this is 5-year-old Christian Belfie.
Yeah.
Christian Belfie. And he is a cancer survivor. So from the age of 18 months old, you know, just an amazing story of hope and survival and persistence of just fighting an illness. And this is just so hard as a young child. And I believe his illnesses started when he was 18 months old.
I'm Melanie Teed-Murch, president of Toys R Us Canada, and we're thrilled to be here in Brantford, Ontario with our partners at Starlight. Christian, a young child, is going to be running for 3 minutes through our store with no customers, all to himself, to fill as many carts as possible.
3, 2, 1!
So 4 years ago, Christian was diagnosed with a brain tumor. So he's gone through surgeries, chemo, radiation. We've also stayed in a rehab hospital. So the past couple of years have been rough, but he's getting stronger every day. So it's been, and this experience has just been amazing.
That's right.
And I will say that Patty Berardi, one of our other Rogers TV producer, did this piece, and she did a fantastic job with it.
That's right. So our Brantford producer, Patty Berardi, at the time, she covered this event really at Toys R Us down in Brantford, with the help of the Starlight Children's Foundation. Christian was given the opportunity to spend 3 minutes inside the Brantford Toys R Us store and fill as many carts as he wanted with as many toys as he could, with alongside his brother and his mom and dad.
Oh yeah, and it is such a fun clip to hear. You know, the air horn goes off, and did Christian actually do the air horn? Was his brother did the air horn?
They were both running around with this little mini air horn and honking it around and screaming and yelling. It was amazing.
And grabbing the toys, and I could just see the kindness of Christian as well. That it's such a close knit family. The mom is Libera, and dad is Adam.
Yes.
And it's Christian and Gianni are the brothers, and such a beautiful family. I could even see that Christian was looking out for his brother in terms. He wasn't just grabbing toys for himself, but you could tell that he was keeping, you know, the other family members in mind.
Exactly, and it was just so wonderful to see Christian with the smile on his face running through Toys R Us and just grabbing those toys. The footage that Patty Berardi sent to myself so I could edit and put it in the program he just had the time of his life. He was so happy, jumping around, cheering. It was absolutely amazing, and it all couldn't have happened without the Starlight Children's Foundation.
And also their partners. I could see this being a community thing as well, because the Toys R Us is also part of the fundraising for Starlight as well. So you can purchase, you can make a donation, purchase a star, and put your star up just to show that symbol of hope and support for illnesses and childhood cancers.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that wasn't the end of the fun.
No.
That was just the beginning.
Starlight was able to help Christian get a great escape to Great Wolf Lodge, and even do his own little Halloween trick or treat where he was able to get a bunch of candy, because sometimes, and it's like when it comes to medical situations like this, the children can't even trick or treat, and they miss out on one of those many aspects of your childhood that you remember fondly back on, and Christian didn't even get the opportunity to do so. So Starlight made that happen.
They did. They do amazing work, and I would like to go back and look and see. I'd love to do a follow-up story. We'll see if it happens. I'd love to do a follow-up story to see how Christian is doing, and some more of the great work that Starlight is doing in the community.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was such a great story, and what a blessing to be able to interact with people's lives and learn more about them, and just come away with something more. I've learned something from all of these segments.
Yeah,
it's been an amazing 100 episodes, Robert.
It really has, and it's really been an amazing ride, I can say. Even though most of the episodes were actually at home, it still was great to get the information out there and share the information with our viewers. And this isn't the end. Episode 101 is next week, so don't forget to tune in.
Right, absolutely. So that's it for our 100th episode of Your Region This Week. You can learn more about the show at rogerstv.com/yourregion-this-week. And if you have a story of your own, you've heard all these amazing stories here tonight. If you have your own story, just go in there at that website and fill out the form. And when I say you're going to get in touch with your producer, Your Region This Week producer, Robert Kubbinga, this is the guy. This is him. And you can see he's a super guy, and we'd love to hear from you and to hear what your story is in your region. So have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Hello, and welcome to Your Region This Week. I'm Anandi Woolery. It's been a busy week, so let's get started. The region of Waterloo is holding their annual Doors Open event, Saturday the 21st. Jordan Tucker is an athletic swimmer from Guelph, aiming for a shot at the 2024 Paralympic Games in Paris, France. The region of Waterloo Public Health Department announced that the novel coronavirus had been discovered in the region. This episode, we will be showing you Your Region This Week stories from before the pandemic began. Habitat for Humanity Waterloo Region is selling gingerbread houses to raise funds for the organization. Welcome to Your Region This Week's COVID-19 local update. Premier Doug Ford had been exposed to a case of COVID-19 and went into isolation at his late mother's home. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this program is being produced and broadcast on First Nation lands in 4 communities that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning.